Hello everybody, this is Revan here, and as you can see by the title of this video, we're going to talk about something a little bit different today. We're going to be talking about Tenkaichi 3 and like why a re-release of some kind needs to happen. Whether that re-release is a remaster, like the Budokai HD collection for the PS3, or it's simply the PS2 on PS4 emulation stuff they've been doing with some games like Dark Cloud and Ape Escape and some other titles, which, by the way, that release schedule has been very slow, so I wouldn't really necessarily want that kind of release, but if that was the only way we could get it, then I would be fine with that. Anyway, so the main reason why I wanted to talk about this is because recently I was just looking up used prices for Tenkaichi 3 on the PlayStation 2, mainly because the reason why I was even looking that up in the first place is because I recently got a PS2 Slim that works. I got it like last year. Because my fat PS2 had some problems, and it was basically couldn't read games anymore. So, I never owned this version of the game on my PS2. I had it for the Wii, and this is where that gameplay is from. And so when I was looking at prices on eBay, used prices for the game, apparently it goes for a whopping $50 to $60 used. And buy it now, and then for bidding, of course, that goes to roughly about the same. Most people who auction it off start the bidding at around $30. So you're not going to get this game on the PS2 for less than $30. Let alone will you get it for you won't even. Let alone will you get it for less than $40. Like the minimum is definitely going to be $45 to $50 probably if you do an auction. But anyway, the other interesting thing is that I also looked at the Wii version just to see how much that was going for, and that while that goes for much less, it's still starting at about $30 for that game used. So we're looking at a game in the aftermarket in the used aftermarket that is now going for what it was new in 10 years ago. And so the game is becoming much harder to obtain. There's less copies in circulation on the PS2 as opposed to the Wii. And the Wii version is only going to get more scarce as time goes on as well. So most people are not, obviously, of course, willing to pay that insane price point for the game at this point in time because we're 10 years later. So anyone who's interested in picking up the game at this point is looking at spending pretty much the same as they would on a brand new PS4 game, which is kind of insane. Now, that is like one of the main reasons for many old games that get re-released. Let's just put aside the fact that there's a ton of people that really, really like this game and like hail it as the best Dragon Ball Z game for a minute. Let's just put that aside. The game is like, it's definitely one of heralded as one of the best anime games, like for the PS2 probably. And it only makes sense that it should be re-released because for the reason that it is so difficult to buy now and that it's so ridiculously priced in the used aftermarket. That's the reason for why a lot of virtual console releases happen for on the Wii U and on 3DS because those older games are so expensive, and having the ability to buy those games digitally at a reasonable price point has only benefits the consumer. So anybody who's like trying to crap on people who want Tenkaichi 3 to be re-released needs to just realize that people who love the game can really no longer reasonably buy it. If they want to play it at all, they either have to emulate it at this point, or they have to hope that they either find a copy really cheap somewhere, or they have to pay the insane prices that the game goes for in the used aftermarket. So that's one of the main reasons. Now, the next reason why a re-release needs to happen is because, well, like I said, it's a very well-liked game. It's pretty much the only Dragon Ball Z game that anyone says is like, oh, this is the best one. This is the best one. Like, there's of course a disagreement between some people that say Budokai 3 is better, Infinite World's better, whatever. People, there's some dissenting opinions, but a lot of people say they love Tenkaichi 3. Tenkaichi 3 was their favorite one. Tenkaichi 3 is the best one. Blah 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 blah. And it's mainly because of the character roster size, and it's true. We will never have a character roster as probably, like, in terms of what is represented here in this game, as diverse and as deep as Tenkaichi 3. Because when you look at it, it has all of the Z characters, all of the necessary Z characters. It has all of the necessary GT characters, and then on top of that, it goes a step further and includes some very niche Z characters, and then Dragon Ball characters. Dragon Ball characters that are unlikely to ever be featured in another Dragon Ball Z game again at this point. Because now with Dragon Ball Super, they're going to be trying to bring those the newer characters into the games instead. So Dragon Ball is going to be shafted for who knows how long. Like, it's very unlikely they will even be featured in a Xenoverse game at this point. Given the producer's comments and the fact that Dragon Ball Super is currently an ongoing series, which would obviously take priority over Dragon Ball characters. So we have these unique characters that are not represented in any of the other later released Dragon Ball Z games. Then another reason is because there's only so much more time that Tenkaichi 3 has to be in the consumer's minds before it gets pushed down in priority in terms of, like, will Bandai Namco see a reason to re-release this game in some form? That is, what are they going to get out of it profit-wise? They won't get much out of it profit-wise in another 5 years, in the next generation. That's not going to happen. They're not going to re-release this game on an alleged PlayStation 5 or whatever. They're not going to do that because the game will be then, by that point, 15 years old. So it's, as time passes, Tenkaichi 3 will slowly fall out of people's minds. Like, people will just forget about it because they'll be selling a different Dragon Ball Z game. There'll be some better Dragon Ball Z game that has captured the hearts of many consumers or something. Or, the people that cared about this game will move on, or they will just give up on it, on it ever being re-released. And so that brings you to the final point where we need to start talking about this again. Rhymestyle was talking about it about 2 years ago, I think, before Xenoverse 1 was even a thing. Or maybe it was before even Xenoverse 2 was a thing. I think it was before Xenoverse 1, where he tried to do this campaign to, get a certain number of views and likes on his video that talked about a potential re-release of Tenkaichi 3. And supposedly he sent this video over to, Bandai Namco USA, someone over there, and they had seen it, and then that they would get back to him about it, and then they never did. It's in my opinion that the reason why they never got back to him is because they probably feel it was just like a lightning in a bottle situation where, like, all the things lined up when they needed to, and that he was able to get all those views and likes for that video because of the timing. There was no new really exciting Dragon Ball Z game coming out at the time, and we were craving something, so we thought that we could have this game get released in the time that it would take for another Dragon Ball Z game to come out. But instead, we got Xenoverse 1. So I would say we need to have this conversation again with them and try to drum up more interest in this game being re-released again in some form. Again, whether that's an HD remaster as part of a collection with Tenkaichi 2 and 1, or even just a standalone remaster release, because this game, frankly, could stand on its own, or a PS2 on PS4 emulation. The latter of which would probably be the easiest way to re-release it. It's just that they would have to do some extra work for trophies for it, which, as far as I know, is one of the main reasons why those releases even get held up so much, because they have to come up with trophies, they have to add code to the game that's being emulated. So, it is, in my opinion, I think we need to have this conversation again, and I would like it if anyone who sees this video could possibly share it and get it out there, and let's talk about it again. Let's have this conversation again. Let's try and reach Bandai Namco again with this and see if we can maybe get it re-released within the next 2 years, ideally. Like, whether it's just this game or Budokai Tenkaichi 2 as well. I don't really mind if it's both, if it's one. We just need to have some version of Tenkaichi re-released, whether it's 2 or 3 or both. Because these two games are really beloved and need to be sustained and able to be continued to be purchased for the foreseeable future in a format that everyone can affordably buy them at. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and the best way to possibly approach this. Maybe even share this with Rhymestyle so we can maybe start this conversation again. Because just letting it, can't just let it flounder like that or the conversation die out, because then technically Bandai Namco has won. I believe that they should definitely re-release this game, not only as a stopgap release between Xenoverse 2 and Xenoverse 3, or alongside Xenoverse 3, but also because it would then be readily available for anyone to purchase at a reasonable price point. They wouldn't have to spend $50, $60 on a game that's over almost 10 years old at this point. So that's what I think. Let's try to have this conversation again. Find out what is preventing it from being re-released. Try, tweet this video out to Bandai Namco. Share it, tweet it to Rhymestyle if you have to. Let's have this conversation going again. And that's what I think. And I hope you guys like this video. And I'll see you next time. Peace.